Can I start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past and present, and thank you to Hazel Walger for her welcome to country, to James Hayward, the State President of the Nationals WA and Federal Vice President of the Nationals, to Tay Allers, our newly elected Young Nationals State President, to Margaret Day, the President of the North West Central Electorate Council and our host for the weekend, Life members, the Honourable Bob Wees, Mary Graham, Ian Robertson, Alan Marshall and the Honourable Murray Criddle, our Distinguished Service Medal recipients Stuart Graham and Heather Giles, and Matt Nicola, Shire President of Exmouth, and to all of our delegates and members and supporters that have come along as well. Welcome to you all. I would like to start by acknowledging our federal colleagues in their absence. It's been a privilege to have Michael McCormack, our federal leader and acting Prime Minister, along with his wife Catherine and our ministers Bridget McKenzie and Matt Canavan, and Federal President Larry Anthony here in WA for a few days, or I think in Larry's case a few hours. The centenary, as James said, of the New South Wales Nationals has called them back to the east, and we thank them for joining us for the time that they had. It's always very welcomed by everybody involved. Welcome to our corporate observers. Your attendance at our conference is always appreciated, and we thank you for the value that you add by engaging with our MPs and our members over this weekend and throughout the year. We couldn't do what we do without your support and your wise counsel, and we truly hope that you enjoy the weekend mixing with our members and enjoying this amazing corner of the state. A special welcome to the WA delegates and members, the engine room of our small but mighty organisation. And to Tay Allers and our young Nats, we welcome you all. Thank you to Heather York for her service and to Siobhan for stepping in when Heather took up her new role in the East Coast with the Deputy PM, and congratulations to Tay on your recent election. Can we have a round of applause for the young Nats? To James Hayward, our outgoing State President and incoming Federal Vice President, we sincerely wish you the very best as you take on your new role for the Federal Executive, and a sincere congratulations on behalf of everyone that's here today. Thank you very much for your service to the party over the past 5 years and your involvement prior to that in all of the various roles that you've taken on. Thank you and congratulations. Best wishes from us all. To Joe Lundy, our newly appointed State Director, we acknowledge your hard work along with Heather Giles, who's buzzing around the room today to bring this conference together. I can't think of a better or more qualified person to keep our organisation running smoothly. Welcome to our State Parliamentary team, particularly our hosts for the weekend, the Honourable Jackie Boydell, Deputy Leader and Member for Mining and Pastoral Region, and the local member Vince Catania. And it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge that we have come to State Conference 2019 with an extra state MP in our ranks. Our 9 members have become 10 since we gathered in Manjimup last year, and I'm very pleased to welcome Ian Blaney, our first member for Geraldton since Edmund Hall held the seat from 1947 to 1950. Yeah, that's worth a clap. We all know that Ian came to the party in a rather unconventional way, but as I said at the time, his desire to join our team is a ringing endorsement for the way that we go about our business. Welcome to Ian and his team and his family. Here's to having you at very many more conferences into the future. This is also our first conference since the federal election, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank our candidates for their contribution to the 2019 federal election campaign. Nick Fardell, Siobhan Blake, Louise Kingston, Scott Bourne, Steve Blythe and John Hassel, you did us proud. The miles covered, the hands shaken and the nights away from your family are too many to count. You flew the flag for the Nationals and we all thank you for your contribution. A big thanks must also go to your families, campaign teams and the network of members who supported you throughout the campaign. Whilst it wasn't the result that we hoped for locally, I know that every person in this room felt both relief and elation that our federal colleagues are once again in government and standing up for regional Australians across this great nation. Let's talk a little bit about Exmouth and where we're here today. It is simply a stunning part of the world. where the Pindan meets the brilliant turquoise of the Indian Ocean. No one's thinking about a quokka selfie when you're within an inch of an enormous, majestic whale shark, or the mass of a humpback whale, or the manta rays we've all seen. And what about the Ningaloo Reef, the UNESCO World Heritage listed and one of the most biological diverse marine environments on the planet? It's just a little piece of paradise. I hope you've all had a chance to wander through this magnificent centre, check out the aquarium, sit in the cyclone room, learn about the amazing natural assets and the defence history of this little town. Premier McGowan may have cut the ribbon, but it was the Shire of Exmouth and the tireless work of Vince Catania and the Nationals that delivered this brilliant place where we meet today. This $32 million centre, $22 million of which came via royalties for regions, is all about education, tourism, community and business. And it's set to become a research hub, as Matt said, following a recent commitment from the Minderoo Foundation for a $100 million investment into ocean research. Add that investment to the $18 million upgrade to the Exmouth Marina to support further diversification of the local economy, and the $11 million town centre revitalisation, enhancing that space for business, for locals and visitors to this town. A mum of one of the kids that sang to us last night at the Sundowner pulled me aside to personally thank us as the Nationals for the contribution that we've made to her town. She said Federation Square had been a dusty little patch of land and dirt that the Shire for many years hadn't had the means to upgrade. Now it's a beautiful park, there's a water playground, there's some decent facilities, and it's always busy. It's so very well used. The town centre is now pedestrian and business friendly, and if you've been there when the Froth Brewery crew get the band going on the roof of the brewery and the town square gets humming, well, that's possible because of the Nationals and our commitment to regional communities. This was a dusty little town with some tired infrastructure. Today, it's got the makings of something bigger, and it was our team, with the commitment of those locals, that helped us to put those building blocks into place. That mum and her kids, so very genuine last night as she pulled me aside to say thank you. That's why we keep pushing forward, and not just in Exmouth and in Coral Bay, but for every community across this state. We will always be champions for regional development. It's in our DNA. Royalties for Regions defines the modern National Party. This bedrock policy completely changed the political landscape for regional WA. It galvanised regional people and it harnessed the creativity of the public sector, the private sector and our communities. It marked the beginning of a new era for the party, and it marked out our intentions for the whole state to thrive. Every government talks of decentralisation, of devolved decision making, of empowering communities to take charge of their destiny. But talk is cheap. The Nationals in government walk the talk. Think about the Country Local Government Fund, a $500 million injection to revitalise regional communities across this entire state. It was the first initiative launched under Royalties for Regions 10 years ago. It allowed 110 country shires to leverage funds to kickstart projects that had stagnated for years. And it sent the signal to the community that we meant business when it came to devolved and decentralised decision making. We trusted our community leaders. We sought out the expertise of the private sector. And in the 8 years of stewardship under the Nationals, almost $7 billion was injected into almost 3,600 projects. And the process that we developed wasn't streamlined or concentrated to just a few people in the upper echelons of government. It was challenging for those who were used to standard government decision making, but that didn't and it doesn't make it wrong. Far from it. Without challenging the status quo, we'd have missed the opportunity to drive investment into transformational projects like the Ningaloo Centre, or the Ord Irrigation Expansion, the Wellington Dam Project, or even Pilbara Cities. All of these projects have attracted Commonwealth and private sector investment. We leveraged the R for our dollar and tapped into the aspiration of regional communities to grow and thrive, not simply survive. Good plans and government investment attract private investment, and private investment attracts jobs. much like the investment that's now flowing into our 9 super towns. It's always been the long-term dividend that we're after in the Nationals. And when we turn up to these towns and we speak to their leaders, they make a point of thanking the Nationals for that program. Katanning, Manjimup, Esperance, Northam, they are now seeing the benefits of our vision and investment being realised in their communities. And if you'll remember, the critics were pretty quick to jump on super towns when it was announced. But we must never let the doubters shake us from the path that we know is best for our communities. Regional development is a long game. It requires commitment and determination. It demands dreamers, people who imagine more, not less. As the leader of your party, my greatest fear isn't a bad poll, it isn't bad press, I don't fear disagreement or debate. My greatest fear is the loss of momentum in the Royalties for Regions program since the change of government in 2017. We see the program reverting to a jumbled spend on projects that should be funded through normal consolidated revenue. There's $4.2 billion under Royalties for Regions programmed across the forward estimates in the state budget. $1.6 billion of that $4.2 billion, nearly 40%, is subsidising the Water Corporation and regional TAFE fees, the Orange School Bus Network, regional education assistance and remote community power and water services. And last financial year, the McGowan government left $320 million unspent in the kitty. $320 million was more than half of the Treasurer's surplus. A surplus that has been built on the grave of Royalties for Regions. Royalties for Regions is less than 3% of the total state budget, but we all know that it can be the spark plug that activates investment and bridge that ever-widening urban-rural divide. Decentralisation, diversification and bold thinking, that's what is going to drive our state forward. Our first step in regaining this momentum is to commit today to restoring the integrity of Royalties for Regions. Our first priority, should we return to government in 2021, will be to sweep out that $1.6 billion and any other additional funding that we deem to be a cost shift, sending it back to consolidated revenue. That's our starting point. The program's integrity has to be returned, and with the Nationals in government, you can be assured that that will be a priority. There are just over 500 days until the March 2021 state election. It's 500 days where we all have the chance to change that outcome for the better. It will require a united and strong team. It will require hard work, grit and determination, and we can't shy away from the issues that other parties put in the too hard basket. Someone who never took the easy road was Tim Fischer, and it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge Tim and his contribution to our party and the nation at our state conference. He leaves a legacy as a genuinely nice fellow and one of courage and conviction. As the leader of the Nationals and the Deputy Prime Minister, he navigated the gun control debate in the face of furious opposition from our own support base because he felt it was right for the nation. He never once succumbed to the populist views of the newly formed Pauline Hanson's One Nation Party. He spoke out against it and he labelled her views on race as divisive and dumb and wrong. He worked tirelessly to open new trade opportunities on the foreign stage for our markets. He was disciplined, he was organised and intuitive, and Tim was often underrated by the chattering class of media and hacks in Canberra, but it didn't matter to him. He knew his constituency and what they needed. The boy from Boree Creek will be missed, and we send our best wishes to Judy, Harrison and Dominic. As we head into the next 12 months, we all need to channel a little bit of the boy from Boree Creek. Never doubt our influence. Remind yourselves of what we have done, even from opposition. Saved the community resource centres, quashed Labor's gold tax, reversed cuts to School of the Air and Vac Swim, headed off Dave Kelly's Great Lobster Grab, saved the Southwest Emergency Helicopter. Our team was in there fighting, forcing the government to rethink their appalling decisions. And we can hold our head high on the difficult debates, backing our mining towns to attract a greater residential workforce and rejecting the rapidly growing trend of fly in, fly out. Championing a sustainable live export industry and preserving the right to farm free from intimidation and harassment. And we've plotted a respectful pathway through some of the most challenging legislation our MPs are ever likely to face with the voluntary assisted dying legislation in the House at the moment. And we've never stopped advocating for more support for our police officers, for better access to quality health and education services, and backing the small business sector. We've always been champions for this sector. Our party was founded to be the voice for settlers and farmers, small businesses who could not get the ear of government. Today, this small business sector contributes about $40 billion to the state's economy every year. 55,000 or 25% of all small businesses are in regional Western Australia. In November 2017, the state government pushed legislation through state parliament which resulted in a payroll increase for 1,300 businesses. At the time, your team, the Nationals WA, moved an amendment to that legislation which would have lifted the payroll tax exemption threshold from $850,000 to $1 million. That amendment was voted down by both the Labor Party and the Liberal Party. Most would agree that we are in or close to a domestic recession. At the beginning of this year, there were 10,000 more West Australians out of work than when Labor was elected. We believe the government should act now to lift that payroll tax exemption threshold from $850,000 to $1 million. Lifting that exemption threshold would provide a tax break for around 1,100 businesses across the state. It would encourage them to employ more people, invest more in their business, and get the state's domestic economy ticking back over. We'll keep pushing for these changes as your team, and we'll keep working with that small business sector because they are the engine room of our local economies. I spoke earlier about our commitment to regional education. The attacks on Labor on regional education have been unprecedented and quite frankly mean. School of the Year, residential colleges, raids on the Agricultural College Trust, camp schools, vac swim, and cuts to the boarding away from home allowance. This last cut was particularly cruel. If you live in a rural or remote town, places that only have a primary school, a district high school, or even no school at all, you have limited choices about where you can educate your kids. In government, we topped the BAHA up, giving it a much-needed injection of funds, and we answered the calls of groups like the Isolated Children's and Parents Association. I say today that if we are in government in 2021, the Nationals WA will restore the integrity of the boarding away from home allowance to support families that have no choice but to send their kids away to complete their schooling. From the 2022 school year, we'll apply an annual indexation of CPI to the base payment of $1,320, and we'll top this up with royalties for regions. Each eligible student will receive up to $3,132 in the first year under our plan, which is more than doubling the amount that they get now under the Labor government. If students are attending a state residential boarding college and they're eligible for the full suite of state and federal subsidies, there will be no gap for boarding fees to be paid under our proposal. This is not a luxury or a choice for many families, it is a reality, and we should be making it easier to educate our regional kids, not more difficult. We also have a singular focus on improving health outcomes for our regional population. We have shorter lifespans than our city cousins. We have higher chronic disease levels, including diabetes, coronary heart disease, lung cancer, and eye disease. We have a shortage of doctors and medical professionals. We have limited and sometimes no access to palliative care services. We have an ageing population that cannot access the services that they deserve. In government, we were bold in our vision to start turning the tide and addressing the deficit of years of neglect. This investment went a long way to recalibrating our health system, but there are significant gaps. How distressing it was to read of the 84-year-old grandmother forced to lie on the floor of the Geraldton Emergency Department in pain because there were no beds. How devastating for the families of snakebite victims to learn that the appropriate anti-venom was not being held in regional hospitals, delaying vital treatment. How horrifying to learn that the Kalgoorlie Hospital has had 156 Code Black incidents activated since 2017 and 2019, up from just 17 between 2014 and 2016. How frustrating it is to have an institution like the Geraldton University Centre pitch a plan to grow and train our own midwives to deal with the statewide shortages we're currently experiencing, only to have that plan fall on the deaf ears of government. and how infuriating that the McGowan government continues to play politics when it comes to pitching in and solving the issue of GP crisis that we face today. We have some local governments and ratepayers footing the bill to keep their GP in their community, some paying as much as $300,000 a year of ratepayers' dollars. Finally, we see no leadership from this government on the patient-assisted travel scheme. Our deputy leader, the Honourable Jackie Boydell, was part of a parliamentary committee that took a deep dive into the PAT system when we were in government. We went to the last election promising to implement the recommendations of this committee in full. This government has left it to gather dust on the shelf. Families are left out of pocket, frustrated and exhausted trying to navigate a complex health system while trying to deal with the burden of travel. We need a champion for rural health in this state. In 2017, the federal government established a National Rural Health Commissioner. It was an election commitment of the Nationals and it was driven by our federal team. They are doing the heavy lifting when it comes to finding practical solutions for some of the challenges that we face. So today I'm announcing that if we're returned to government in 2021, we'll establish a state Rural Health Commissioner. We need a laser-sharp focus on regional health if we want greater efficiency and better outcomes, and innovation will be the key. We see this office supporting and informing the work of WA Country Health Services, of Rural Health West, of St John's, RFDS, the Pharmacy Guild, Rural Clinical Schools and Silver Chain, just to name a few. The position will be independent and impartial, a fearless champion for regional health, and most importantly, they will report to Parliament, ensuring there is a truly independent perspective on the state of regional health in Western Australia. Finally, I want to touch on our newly created Regional Cities portfolio. Boosting jobs, fostering innovation and helping to incubate new businesses in these centres is at the heart of the Nationals' agenda. Our state's regional cities are home to nearly 250,000 people, and that's almost half the population of regional WA, and they are critical to the future of our state. Where are our Ballarats, our Bendigos, our Tamworths, our Waggers? It's not healthy or sane or sensible for us all to live in Perth or on that skinny slice of land immediately to the south. We have a track record of working with the private sector to transform dated, dusty towns into modern and attractive places to live and work and invest. And you only need to look to this region, especially Karratha, to know what can be achieved when there is political will. We want to entice more families and workers to live in this region. We need diversified economies to lessen the dependence on FIFO work practices. Our regional cities portfolio will provide this focus, and it will allow us to engage positively with key stakeholders as we work towards 2021. Wouldn't it be great to see our current state government pursue economic development opportunities for our regions with the same vigour and zeal they have for Metronet and the Collins-class submarine maintenance contract? The federal government has a program ideal for channeling this enthusiasm, a ready-made structure for engagement. The City Deals and Regional Deals model brings together federal, state and local government to tailor a deal working on each region's comparative advantage, assets and challenges. It's like a turbocharged super towns program. The McGowan government has already signed a city deal for Perth, predominantly focused on the delivery of Metronet. We know where their priorities are. We look forward to working with our federal colleagues on the opportunities they see to develop a regional deal here in Western Australia. Our regional cities portfolio has been well received and we're already hard at work. In fact, on Monday, Ian, Jackie and myself will travel to Kalgoorlie to discuss their priorities in the context of this portfolio. It may have been a dark few years under the McGowan government, but there is a lot to look forward to. It's not all doom and gloom. We are a small team that packs a mighty punch. We have a new Member of Parliament who brings with him 11 years of experience and a fantastic new portfolio. We have you, the grassroots of the organisation that continue to burn bright with ideas on how we can make your towns and communities better places to live, work and invest. We have 10 committed local champions in our parliamentary team. We need to be loud and proud. We need to be proud of our history. We need to be loud about our achievements. We need to be positive about our plans for the future of this state. As you debate the motions on the agenda today, I urge you to think not only of the people who already support us, think of those who aren't yet members. What's going to get them across the line to help strengthen the voice of regional WA in the state parliament? What policies and issues will attract them to our camp to share their expertise and become part of our Nationals family? Reflect on the people that have made their mark in our great party, the Joss Bowies and the Alan Holmes. May they rest in peace. Remind yourselves of their passion and dedication. They stood steadfast in their support for this party through good times and bad. Channel the fearless and hard-working boy from Boree. Think of your kids and their kids. We're helping to shape their future. Now bottle all that up and store it away, because over the next 500 days you're going to need every ounce of inspiration. Regional WA can't survive another 4 years of the McGowan Labor government. We have a very big job to do, but I can't think of a better team to have beside me in the trenches as we go forward.